Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Perfectionism Project, a podcast full of perfectionism advice for entrepreneurs. My name is Sam Laura Brown. I help entrepreneurs release their perfectionism handbrake so they can get out of their own way and build a fulfilling and profitable business. I'm the founder of the Perfectionists Getting Sh group coaching program, which is otherwise known as PGSD. And for even more perfectionism advice to help you with your business, you can follow me on Instagram at Perfectionism Project. Okay, so this is part 2 of my 5-part series on personal development for perfectionist entrepreneurs and how to grow your business by growing yourself. That's the approach I've taken. That's the approach I teach our PGSDers inside Perfectionists Getting Shit Done. And I really want to share with you in this series some of the core essential personal development work that I needed to do and that I teach my clients how to do to be able to be successful in business. And today's episode on feeling safe to be seen, allowing yourself to show up as yourself in the world, to be visible, building a business and having dreams that you haven't yet achieved and actually trying hard. We perfectionists, we just want to look like we're effortlessly successful and we're naturally skilled and intelligent. And so it feels so vulnerable to be truly going for something in public and to be expressing yourself, regardless of what kind of business you have, to be doing something that feels true to you and alive to you and connected to you. All of that brings up so much perfectionism and has us turn our perfectionism handbrake on. And if you don't do the personal development work required to release your perfectionism handbrake in that area, to be able to feel safe to be seen, I'm going to be really practical in this episode and talk about what actually needs to happen for you to feel safe to be seen. You won't be able to build a business. You won't be able to be successful in business. And I'm going to talk about my story with this and all the ways that it impacted my business negatively to when I was not feeling safe to be seen, how that showed up in so much overthinking and procrastinating, hiding, just like not being able to decide things. There were so many ways that my business and myself and my confidence were impacted because I didn't feel safe to be seen. And once I really started to create that safety, and I'm going to again talk really practically in this episode about what that looks like and how to do that, then I was able to start showing up and to start showing up consistently and to start taking my business seriously and to be all in on my business, even though I had other things in my life that I was doing too, and to just be able to get it off the ground. If I didn't create the safety to be seen, like the emotional safety to be seen, to be visible, especially as myself, and especially doing something risky like entrepreneurship, where it's not guaranteed that you're going to be successful. It's not guaranteed that you're going to hit your goals. It's not guaranteed that when you post that everyone's going to like it, no matter how good decisions you make. And we perfectionists can be in this mindset of like, if I make the right decision, then everything else will be good. Everything else will work. So like if I do a good post, then everyone will like it. Whereas the reality is you can do an amazing post and it gets very low engagement. Like it's just entrepreneurship requires so much mental agility, stamina, resilience, and perfectionism, and that perfectionist thinking can make it feel so unsafe to be seen. And then we feel unsafe to be seen, especially if you feel unsafe to be seen, but you really want to be productive. You have an identity of being a smart person who's productive. You really beat yourself up whenever you feel lazy, whenever you're not following through with things, whenever you have potential, but you're not living up to that potential. You beat yourself up and shame yourself for resting. You shouldn't be resting. You should be doing something. If that's you, where you want to be productive, but you don't feel safe to be seen, then you are going to be doing so many unproductive things in your business. You're going to be doing a lot of comfort work in your business to get yourself feeling productive so you feel comfortable, but you're not going to be doing things that actually move the needle and build the business. So in this episode, I'm really going to be sharing just the things I wish I had been able to know when I was absolutely mortified of being seen. And so I'll go into this in this episode. And part of the reason I feel so passionately on this topic in particular is because so much of the advice out there on showing up and being seen is shared by people who didn't have a problem with showing up and being seen. And when that is the case, they will say things like, just stop caring about what other people think. It shouldn't matter what your parents think. It shouldn't matter what your colleagues think. Like, don't worry about them. Just focus on yourself. That advice never, never resonated with me. I understood it intellectually. Yeah, it doesn't matter what other people think. Sure. I understand that. Everyone's thinking about themselves. They're not really thinking about you. Sure. I get it. I got it. But I was so terrified. Emotionally, I didn't get it. Emotionally, it was so important to me that I was loved and accepted by the people around me. It was so important. I couldn't just stop caring about what other people thought, even if I understood that that was something that needed to be done. And even if I understood why, like the negative impact it was having on me and my business to care about what other people thought of me, I couldn't just get myself to stop caring. And there are so many people who are obviously like, who have this fear. And there are a lot of people who teach business and who teach amazing things with business, but specifically on this topic of feeling safe to be seen and safe to be visible, if someone has never struggled with it, they will just say things like, just show up, just post. Like, why can't you just post? Why can't you just follow through? Like, why aren't you just doing the thing? Just put yourself out there. Just tell your friends and family about your business. Just share your goals with them. Just share your dreams with them. Who cares what they think? Like, oh my God, that was just, it wasn't me. And so, one of the things that we do in PGSD is we create just through as well, like the structure of the program and the community and the coaching. So let alone like the practical tools that I'm going to be talking about, but just the nature of the program creates safety to be seen and to show up and to have somewhere to share things that you might feel ashamed about. And just like, it's so important to have a safe place to be yourself while you are developing the safety to be seen. And yeah, I just feel like this topic, I just couldn't find someone that taught on it in the way that I needed to be taught about how to actually feel safe. Like, I felt like there was something so wrong with me that I couldn't just tell my friends and family about my blog. So I mentioned in part one that I started my business as a blog in 2013. And for me, really the first bit of personal development work that I needed to figure out to be able to be anywhere close to getting my business off the ground was actually feeling safe enough and not just completely mortified and terrified. I'm not exaggerating. Like, I was so, felt so impossible. It felt so hard. Like, I couldn't actually do it. Like, I couldn't tell anyone in my real life about my business. It was my dirty little secret that I had a personal development blog. I felt so embarrassed by it. I just felt like I would be rejected, unlovable. Like, I just couldn't. It was just too risky to share it. Just like such intense fear of being seen as myself, being seen to have a real goal at something and to like be working towards something that isn't the typical thing to be working towards, because I was a university student. I was doing a law degree and a finance degree and like things that people understood. And then here I was doing a personal development blog when I was still just figuring out what personal development even was. Like, it just felt too risky. I just couldn't tell anyone about it. So when people would say things like, just tell your friends and family about your business or like post it on your personal Facebook page, or people would say things on interviews I'd listen to about like, the first person that was reading my blog was like one of my parents or my friend or like someone they knew personally. I was like, oh my God, definitely not. Like, no, I cannot have anyone in my personal life know about this. Like, this is way too big a risk. And to just be now in a place where I'm full-time in my business. I have been since 2019, making a full-time income and more since then in my business. To have a blog, sorry, not a blog. I mean, I technically have a blog, still a website, but to have a podcast with nearly 600 episodes where like my 2013 self when I started my business could never fathom having my own podcast, having it actually be successful and people loving listening to it, me just showing up and sharing and talking freely, knowing that anyone in the world in my personal life can listen to it, knowing that people in my personal life do listen to it. That still feels uncomfortable when they tell me, oh, I listened to your podcast. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Because this feels like such a true expression of myself that it just feels exposing that like people I know and love are listening to this, but obviously they're listening to it because they enjoy it and they love me. But to just be in such a different situation now compared to where I was, I know that it's possible that even if you have really debilitating levels of a fear of visibility and being seen and showing up as yourself, like you can show up in a job, you can show up in situations where people, like it's very clear what's expected of you. It's very clear, like for example, like you show up with studying or you show up in a job and like you can show up when you know what's expected, but like when you're actually truly expressing yourself and when you're going after something that isn't guaranteed, which is the nature of entrepreneurship, that can bring up so many perfectionist fears. And the reason the perfectionist fears, and I talked about perfectionism in part one. I mean, I've talked about perfectionism, like this whole podcast, the Perfectionism Project. We're talking about perfectionism and perfectionist thinking and how to release your perfectionism handbrake. And something that I didn't mention in part one that I think is really important to share here is that perfectionism is less about doing things perfectly and more about avoiding doing anything imperfectly. And this is why there are so many misconceptions around perfectionists, and people just say like, perfectionists are the people that are just so neat and organized and like they're on top of everything. And basically like perfectionists are the people who actually manage to do things perfectly. That is part of why I didn't identify as a perfectionist, because I was like, I am not doing things perfectly at all. But what I was doing was avoiding doing things imperfectly, or if I was doing something imperfectly, it was by choice. It was by design. It wasn't because I was incapable, it was because I was choosing it. And we do this a lot with perfectionism, that we will, I'm just trying to think of, I mean, there's so many examples I could give, but there are so many ways that, because so many perfectionists, like, like if I was a perfectionist, I wouldn't just like, I'd be kind of like type B and I do this thing in a really sloppy, I do this thing in a really sloppy way. I think it's so interesting as well, just as a side note, when people talk about like, there's type A people, which is like the perfectionist who does everything perfectly and is super organized. And there's type B people who don't do everything organized. And when people, especially like, well, sometimes I'm type A and sometimes I'm type B. For perfectionists, when you're being type B and something isn't being organized or like kind of like in that classic perfectionist approach, oftentimes what's going on is that we are intentionally doing something poorly because we don't believe we could do it perfectly if we actually tried, and we'd rather intentionally do it poorly than really try to do it the way we want to do it and fail at doing that. So for example, when it comes to like, let's just say content creation and like posting on social media, that it feels vulnerable to be showing up and posting consistently. And especially if you have low engagement or you're getting people saying things like commenting and like all of that. And so what can happen is like, well, I'm not a perfectionist because like, look at me, like I'm not even posting at all, or I posted this thing that I'm like not that happy with, and like kind of just being in this intentional imperfection, because then we still feel very in control of it. It feels very vulnerable as a perfectionist to be really going something, to be really all in, to be really committed. That doesn't mean it has to burn you out, but to just be really going for it. and to not be able to live up to the expectations we have. So oftentimes we just completely lower the expectations, or we don't even try at all, or we intentionally do it last minute, subconsciously or consciously, or we intentionally do it in a more sloppy and messy way so that it's like, well, I wasn't even trying anyway. Right? Like that as a perfectionist feels comfortable. Like, well, I didn't even try my hardest. Like I wasn't even really trying. If I was trying, I would have done it differently than that. And so I I failed at it, or it didn't go as planned or whatever, because I didn't try. It feels so vulnerable as a perfectionist to say, because I'm incapable, because I'm inadequate, it didn't work. Because we are constantly telling ourselves that story, we're so resistant to adding any extra evidence of incapability on top of that. So what we will do is we will intentionally do things in a substandard way so that we can say, oh no, that was intentional. I didn't even try my hardest. I wasn't even trying. And just start to notice in your life when you're like, oh yeah, that thing wasn't as good as I hoped, or like I didn't get the job, but you know what? I didn't even try in the interview. Like I didn't really prepare. That's perfectionism. That is the perfectionism of it. Feels vulnerable to prepare for a job interview and really go for it and then not get it. It feels so much easier to say, well, I didn't really prepare, or I didn't really study, or I didn't really try with the launch that I had, or with selling the thing that I had, or with posting on social media, or like whatever it is. It feels so comfortable to say, well, I didn't even try, because we'd rather say that than, well, yeah, I tried and it got proven that I'm inadequate. If you fundamentally already have these thoughts as perfectionists do, that I'm inadequate, we are just trying so damn hard not to gather any extra evidence that we're inadequate. And so a lot of avoidant behavior will come up, as well as, and for some perfectionists, a lot of overworking and just like polishing and perfecting. But perfectionism really is about trying to avoid imperfection when it's a situation that we're really trying. Again, we create a lot of intentional imperfection, but we're like, oh, but that's because I'm not really trying. But we're just so scared when we're in those perfectionist thought patterns. We're so scared to try our best and our best not be good enough. That is the fear of the perfectionist, is the shame, the pain that comes with being unloved or unlovable. And we think that if I show up and people see that I'm not perfect, and I'm trying my hardest and I'm not perfect, we think it's okay if they see I'm not perfect, but I'm not even trying. So that's fine. If I tried, I'd be able to be better. But no, I'm really trying. I'm really going for it. And I'm still not able to do a good enough job. That feels so painful and shameful as a perfectionist, that we do all sorts of crazy things to avoid that situation. So I just want to chat through a few of the, like, for feeling safe to be seen, like what you need to feel safe to be seen to be doing. So number one is feeling safe to be seen to do something different to what's expected. There are some people in the world who don't have any hangups on this and like, oh, I love doing things differently to everyone else. But most perfectionists, especially the ones I help, feel like they should be doing what everyone else is doing. They should have a job. They should, if they have their own business, they should be working 9 to 5 hours. They should be doing something that is kind of like the typical thing, the smart thing, the expected thing, the responsible thing. Like it's irresponsible to do anything differently. If they have a maternity leave, they should do that the same way that someone who's in employment and in a different situation would do it. Like they should do it the stereotypical way. They should do it the way that society talks about everyone doing it. So there needs to be safety created around being seen to actively be doing something different. So for me, for example, when I started my blog, that was not expected of me. That was not something that was really like congruent with how I'd showed up in the world. Also, most people, especially at that point in 2013, had no idea what a blog is. Most people didn't really know what personal development is. Like I was doing something very weird. I was doing something very atypical. And this was coming after me being someone who was just kind of like doing the expected thing and like going to school, doing well in school and going to a good university, doing well, studying something that smart people study. Like I was kind of just on this trajectory of like doing the typical thing. And for me to be able to really go all in on my business and pursue having a business, I had to be willing emotionally to differentiate myself and to stand out rather than my perfectionist people pleasing and like the fear of judgment just having me want to fit in and do what was expected of me and do what was safe and responsible. I had to be willing emotionally to be seen to be doing something that was irresponsible, perhaps. Entrepreneurship, no guarantees that if you do it and invest a lot of time into it, that it's going to work. Even if you make all the right decisions, there's just no guarantees. It's just a very uncertain endeavor just by its nature. And so there was that, plus the personal development element, plus there being a blog. Like it wasn't like I'm going to start this brick and mortar restaurant where like people understand what that is. And even then, though, there's still like that's doing something different to the typical thing, which is the typical thing for most people is like you should go to school, do well, then get a good job, do well, work your way up in that job and then retire. So if you're deviating from that, especially if you're like really going for it, you have to be emotionally willing and able, not just willing, but able to be seen to be doing something that's atypical and potentially risky and irresponsible. So there's that. Then another one is being like feeling safe to be seen as who you really are. Regardless of what kind of business you have, being seen as yourself in the world, especially, and I mentioned this in part one, I help a lot of entrepreneurs who are doing something, no matter what kind of business. I help so many different kinds of entrepreneurs, but they're doing something where they feel more self-expressed to be doing that than if they were in like a standard typical job, for example. Like they have a passion, they have a hobby, they have an interest, they have something that they are wanting to share with the world, whether it's writing, whether it's performing, whether it's designing things. Like they have things they want to share. And to actually feel safe to be yourself in the world, like for me, that was such a big one. Like to actually start showing up in the world as a personal development nerd, which is what I am, that I felt so much safer to just not be into personal development because that's a weird thing to be into, especially when I started getting into it. It wasn't as mainstream as it is now, but I think it's still most people aren't really into personal development. But that was another thing. I had to feel safe to be seen as who I am, which is someone who's very introspective, someone who kind of like thinks about the world in a different way to other people around me, someone who wants to read personal development books and really just kind of like the nerdy way that I approach creating results in my life and creating change through changing how I'm thinking and feeling and like doing self-coaching and journaling, like all of those things that weren't the typical things to be doing. I had to actually create safety. And I'll talk about specifically how to do this work, but to create safety to be seen as me. And there's also feeling safe to be seen to make mistakes and to do something that no one else is engaging with. So it's kind of this feeling of if you imagine throwing a party and telling everyone about it and being so excited about it, and then no one comes to the party, or worse, a few people come and they see the party sucks and no one else is there and then they leave. Like it's kind of being able to sit with the feelings and allow the feelings of that, because that is how it feels. And we think often as perfectionists, we think, well, if I just make the right decisions, like I pick the right niche, I pick the right social media marketing strategy, I use the right templates or whatever, I can avoid that feeling. No, that feeling is coming. That feeling is part of building a business. So you need to have the emotional capacity to actually be with that feeling that you have as a perfectionist, that people will see you do things that don't land. People will see you just because of like the public nature of business. People will see you make mistakes, do things that might be a bit cringy. Like it's that like you can't actually, when you're building the business, keep up, especially if you're actually going to build the business. It's it's basically impossible to try and give this illusion that everything you do is always successful. And you can like you can lie about it, you can try and weave that story, but you're going to feel very isolated and alone because fundamentally that is not the nature of business, that it's just successful once and successful always, and that's how it is. It's an emotional roller coaster, it's a ride, and that's one of the key reasons as well that PGSE exists. You need support on that emotional journey of building a business. The ups and downs are inevitable, and so you want support accordingly instead of like, "Oh, no, if I just make all the right decisions and do some more research, then I won't have ups and downs." There is no avoiding the ups and downs. Some of them will be because you made a mistake or you had a thought error that you didn't realize. Again, why personal development is so important, to catch thought errors. But also circumstances, the economy, things changing, Meta changing their policies on algorithms or ads, or like there's just so many factors. And so you have to be willing to be seen to make mistakes. And like it's just so much more public than in a job. So for example, for me, before I was full time in my business, I was working as a receptionist. And then before that, I was working full time as an accountant. And I still had perfectionism come up for me when I was in my accounting job. But also, everyone in the world couldn't see my job performance. Like, they couldn't see how I was showing up in a team meeting, or they couldn't see the report that I made. Like, they couldn't see it. It's kind of more private and more hidden. You had to actually work in that business to be able to see how I was performing at work. Whereas with what I do, for example, literally anyone in the whole entire world can listen to my podcast. And if I go live on Instagram, people I know in my real life can just come in and like have a look at how I'm performing on my Instagram live, for example. This is why it's so important not to try and skip the personal development work. Because when you're building a business, regardless of what kind of business that is, it is so much more public than when you're working for someone else. And if we're doing things in public, that perfectionism handbrake will come on because there's more opportunity to be seen to be imperfect and to be judged. Like, as we think as perfectionists, everyone's judging us. There's more of this feeling of being exposed and being judged. And especially if you have people in your life, friends, family, colleagues who are aware of your business and who ask you how your business is going as well, there's just personal development that needs to be done to be willing to do things in public and to not just be hiding and always like researching things and learning things and trying to make decisions. And I'm doing some more thinking and just like doing all the behind the scenes stuff. You can't build a business just only doing the behind the scenes stuff. Making a new system for things, getting organized, like going back to the drawing board again. You have to actually feel safe to be doing stuff, to be taking action, to be taking a sufficient volume of action, not just sporadic every now and again. Like that doesn't build a business. You need to be taking a sufficient level of action. And if you aren't willing, because of your perfectionism, if you aren't willing to be seen, to be showing up and making mistakes and doing things that might get low engagement or be a bit embarrassing, if you don't have the emotional ability to do that, you will not able to be successful in business. Another one is being seen to try hard. I mentioned this a bit before, but this is such a big one because if you're a perfectionist, and I'm assuming at this point you're listening to this because you resonate with what I share. So if you're a perfectionist, part of that perfectionist mindset is the belief that effort is a sign of inadequacy. And my guess is you're someone who you put a lot of effort into your life, like you're trying really hard. But it's this idea that like if you put in effort to something and it doesn't pay off, we have this massive fear of wasting effort. We don't want to waste time, but we especially don't want to waste effort. How embarrassing to put an effort into something and not get a result. That's what we think is perfectionists. How embarrassing, because that means I was inadequate. If I put effort into something and it didn't work, that means I'm a failure. That means I'm bad. That means I'm wrong. So it feels vulnerable to show up and really be trying hard and to be really going for it. It's so much more comfortable if you're in the perfectionist mindset. It's so much more comfortable to be dabbling, to be plodding along, to be chipping away, to be thinking about it, to be researching it, to be doing it one day, someday, maybe. So much more comfortable than like, I have this goal, I have this vision, and I'm going for it. And I'm willing for it to be uncomfortable, and I'm willing to do the personal development work as a perfectionist entrepreneur. I'm willing for there to be ups and downs. Like, I'm willing to do it and to try hard without there being a guarantee. Again, there's like no guarantee. There's no certainty of like, well, yeah, if you show up and work hard, you'll definitely get there. You'll definitely develop skills and you will definitely personally develop, but you won't definitely achieve your goals. That's not the game of business. You might then later start a different business that's successful. You can transfer those skills elsewhere. Like, there's so many other options, but it feels vulnerable as a perfectionist to really be trying hard and to be seen to actually be going for it, especially when you aren't getting traction yet, because it takes time to build momentum. In PTSD, you learn about momentum projects and how to use them to build momentum, but it takes time to build momentum. And so you have to be willing to be going for it for an extended period of time. I'm not talking about like, try for a few weeks or try for a few months and then it'll all start working. It can sometimes take a lot longer than that. So you have to be willing and you have to do the personal development work so that you are actually willing to try hard. So you're actually willing to be all in. That's one of the things we really support within Perfectionists Getting Shit Done. And something as well that people say, like, when they sign up, it's like part of that is them actually being like, okay, I'm really actually going all in now. I'm not going to keep dabbling. I'm not going to keep like trying to chip away at it or like just constantly think about like, okay, what's the perfect niche or what's the perfect product? Like, I'm actually going to go for it. I'm actually going to try hard, which means making decisions, taking action, showing up. That's what putting effort in. Putting effort in doesn't mean, okay, I'm going to put effort in to make this perfect decision. Putting effort in means actually showing up and going for it and making decisions and knowing that it's going to feel uncomfortable because your perfectionist brain is just constantly pointing out everything that's imperfect with your plan and everything that's wrong. Like, your perfectionist brain is a master at identifying imperfection. Is another reason it's so important as a perfectionist entrepreneur to do this personal development work that we're talking about. Because if your brain's biased towards spotting imperfection, and because of the nature of business, that there's always more to be done, there's like a million different ways to do things. You're not getting a pat on the back for doing a lot of your needle movers. It's just like quiet work that you're consistently doing and showing up to do. So you need to be willing emotionally, you need to do the personal development work required so you're not in this place of entitlement, like, yeah, I'll show up for a few weeks, but then it should be working. Or I'll launch this thing, but people should sign up. Or yeah, like, I've been in business, once I'm in business for 2 years, it should be successful by then. Like, business is not a game where entitlement works. You've got to be in willingness to actually try hard. That doesn't mean you need to burn yourself out. PGSD, we teach you not burn out. It doesn't mean that you need to just be in this place of forgetting everything else in your life. I'm a very big proponent and teacher of how to have constrained work hours and use that time well, but you have to do personal development work to be able to do that. You have to do that. Otherwise, if you try and have limited hours but use your time well, you will just put so much pressure on yourself and it'll be so hard to figure out what to do that you won't get anything done at all. So you just need to move into a different way of thinking to actually be able to have a limited amount of time and to use that time to move the needle, to be able to actually just make decisions sufficiently, take sufficient action, get results, keep going, keep going through the ups and downs of business. Like, it's just, it's so important. This is all so important. What else have I got here? Being seen to want something that you don't yet have, that can feel very vulnerable, especially if you're a successful person and people have a concept of you and you have a concept of you that, like, whatever you set your mind to, you achieve. It then feels vulnerable to be going towards something that, especially if like what you've achieved is more so in the academic realm or like as an employee, that when you have your own business, it's a different game. And so you have to be willing, you have to be able emotionally to be seen to have something, to want something that you don't yet have, and to be working towards something that you haven't yet been capable of achieving. And also being seen to struggle, feeling safe to be seen struggling. Doesn't mean you have to share your struggles with everyone, but if you don't feel safe to share your struggles, even in, for example, in Perfectionists Getting Shit Done, we really support with this, because if you don't have somewhere safe to share your struggles, or you just like vent with your partner about it, especially if they're someone who their beliefs in your business are a bit wobbly because you have been showing up in a bit of a wobbly way, and then you share that your struggles with them and they're like, oh my God, I totally agree. You should shut the whole thing down. Like, you don't sound like you know what you're doing at all. Like, you need somewhere safe to share your struggles and to be seen to be struggling. It just creates so much relief. When you are a perfectionist, we have so much shame. Like, perfectionism is really a strategy to avoid shame. We're doing all the perfectionist patterns to avoid feeling ashamed, because we already feel so ashamed that we don't want any extra shame on top of that. And so when you are then struggling, which is going to be inevitable in business and in personal development, if you are setting out to do things you've never done before, you are going to have turbulence. You are going to have things be shaky. There's going to be times where you are feeling like you're incapable, or you can't figure something out, or you're so frustrated, and you need to have somewhere to be able to share that, so you can, and just be supported in that and witness others in that. Oh my God, I love that about PTSD. Like, you can see other perfectionist entrepreneurs getting coached and sharing the same struggles that you have. It just really helps to remove so much shame. So when it comes to, I'm just thinking where to go next. I've got a bunch of notes here, and I just really want to share with you what this work looks like high level, how to actually make these shifts. But before I do that, I just want to share about the impact of not feeling safe to be seen and to show up. You probably know already if that's you. If you're like, I'm really embarrassed to share stuff. Like, I find myself overthinking and all of that. But I just want to share specifically, I'll give examples from my own life of how it showed up for me when I hadn't yet done the personal development work required as a perfectionist entrepreneur to feel safe, to be seen and visible as myself, and to be visible and seen to be putting an effort into something and trying something, especially something that's atypical and not like what's expected or what's responsible. Here's how it showed up. Here's some of the ways. There are more, but here are some of the ways. The impact of that was, first of all, hiding. I was hiding. I didn't want to tell anyone about my business because I was so ashamed of it. And so it's very hard to be successful in business when you're trying to hide your business from everyone in your life. I didn't want it to have anything to do with like my personal Facebook page that I had, or like I didn't want anyone to be able to come across me. Like, I needed to hide. Like, that was where I was at. I just needed it to be hidden. I was very sporadic in posting and sharing and any content creation. So I started my business as a blog. And so part of having the blog is you post blog posts. And it was just such a battle to post something and keep it published and to do that consistently. Like, for my first few years, like, I was really trying to figure that out. I'm so glad now I have figured that out. And we teach that in PGSD, and specifically for perfectionist entrepreneurs, because the answer isn't you have a pretty content calendar and know your pillars or like any of that. It's the emotional side that needs to be solved, so you feel safe to show up and to be consistent and to like be exposed regularly, if you will. So I was very sporadic. And for example, when I first started my blog, I started my blog and then I just didn't do anything for 3 months because I was like, oh my God, just it brought up so much to even actually start it. And then I posted something which was just like, here's something that I came across that someone else said that I think was interesting. And then I just edited, after I published that post, I edited it again and again and again and again. And no one in my life knew about it. No, I didn't have any traffic to my website. Like, no one was seeing it. But then I just edit it. Like, this is all so time consuming and exhausting. Like, this is not moving the needle in any way, shape, or form. But I'd edit it to try, it's that comfort work, to try and create comfort. I just edit it again and again and again. And then I wouldn't post for a long time. And then like a couple months later, I was like, okay, this isn't working. I need to be posting every day just to post something. And then I did that for a month and then I just stopped posting again. And then I would do a post and I want to create high quality content. So I'd put so much effort into it, which made it such a big deal. There was so much pressure. So it was so hard to publish anything. And then I wouldn't post again for 3 months. Or I'd post like once every week for 5 weeks and then I just stopped for months. Like it was very sporadic. So much effort though. Like if you looked at my blog, you would not know, you would not be able to tell how hard I was working behind the scenes to try and get these blog posts up. But I was always thinking about it. I was always coming up with content ideas. I was always trying to be like writing something. I just couldn't publish it. And I couldn't publish it consistently. Content took forever. I mentioned that, but like hours and hours to write a blog post. It would take me, I was doing Pinterest as well. It would take me like sometimes like 3 hours to create one Pinterest graphic. And your examples of this, like your reality might not be as extreme as this, but I just really wanted to share this because like I have come from probably more extreme perfectionism than you might have. And I've been able to get to where I am today. And maybe you're like, oh my God, this is me. And I can 100% also help you. But I just want to share this because this was my real life. Like, I'm not just like, oh, imagine if like this was my reality. I was spending all day, every day. Like I'd be on the train on my way to work, like trying to write blog posts. I just couldn't emotionally publish them. It just felt too vulnerable to do that consistently because of my fear of like, what if I'm consistent at publishing? This is the perfectionist thinking. What if I'm consistent at publishing what I think are good quality, high quality blog posts and I still am not successful? So I stopped myself from being able to be consistent so that I could say, well, if I was more consistent, then I would be more successful. But what I had to develop was the ability to be willing and able to show up and try my hardest, knowing that it might not work and knowing that my brain might then produce thoughts of inadequacy and feelings of shame and that I can handle them. What else have I got? Editing content that was already published, copying other people's style so I could fit in. So for example, what I would do is, and I wouldn't call it plagiarism, but probably as close to that as you can get without plagiarizing. I'd like look at other people's, for example, like Pinterest graphics, and then I create such a similar style because it's like, well, this is the right way to do it and I should do it like them. And I think there's part of when you're new at something, like, okay, I'm going to try writing something like this person writes it, or like you're finding your voice, you're figuring out your style. Like, so if you're doing that, I don't want to, or if you're not doing that, I don't want you to think it's wrong to do that. But I was doing it really from this place of like, I need to fit in when actually what I needed to do was stand out. But like, I was like, no, I need to like fit in with how everyone else is doing it. I need to fit in with best practices. I need to do what the experts would say, all of that to try and create this like comfort and motivation for myself. I was so hard to build an audience as I couldn't leverage at all my personal network. Like I really had to, because I was so scared to share anything with anyone in my real life. I really had to work a lot harder to be able to build an audience because I had to do it in a way that I could feel like it could be secretive still. I felt really alone and ashamed, and the hiding made the shame fester. Like it felt like having my blog was my little secret that I had and no one else could find out about it because how embarrassing. And the more I kept it secret, and I didn't have a place like PGSE to be able to share like, hey, like I have this business that I'm working on and like this feels really scary, but I'm going to share it here in this safe place because I don't feel safe yet to share it with other people I know, not because they were unsupportive, but because I was in a place where I felt so wobbly about it that it felt so vulnerable to even share it with anyone else. So I just felt so alone and ashamed, and it is very hard. It is very hard to build a successful business in a sustainable way when shame is one of your main emotions. And also, I just kept trying all of these different strategies, like having a different content calendar, getting organized with systems. Like, I was just really trying to, because I didn't feel emotionally like I could show up. Like, it just felt so, I felt like panic. I felt ashamed that I would then try and do these different things to motivate myself to be seen and to try and will myself to be seen. And so I was busy with things like content calendars, creating different systems, learning about how other people do things like that. And it's not that you can't have a content calendar or things like that, but I'd never stick to it because it wasn't the actual solution that I needed. And then I just beat myself up for not being able to stick to it. And then I'd be like, okay, let's try again. And it still wouldn't work. And I'd be like, what is wrong with me that I can't just like stick to my content calendar? Oh, it's the perfectionism stopping me from being able to be seen. That's what's going on. So like when I started to actually get to the root of that, then now I can like make a content calendar and stick to it. So with that said, what is the solution? Like, what is the personal development work required to be done as a perfectionist entrepreneur? Because we know the solution isn't just stop caring about what other people think. The solution isn't just get yourself super organized and get yourself a content calendar and like do all of those things that will hopefully make you feel more confident. What you need to do is create what I call safe visibility. This is something we teach you inside PGSD. There's a process for creating safe visibility so that you feel, as the name suggests, safe to be visible. We have to do that work in a really direct way rather than trying to do all of these like exterior things like having a content calendar or like knowing what your content pillars are or whatever to try and get you to feel safe. Like we actually get to the root. There's a process that you go through and we really get specific about exactly why you're not feeling safe to be seen. There's like all different areas that we go through when it comes to your business and how you're showing up on different platforms and all these different things like this. We get really specific about where the lack of safety is for you. And then we make a very specific plan so that you don't feel unsafe anymore. And so that you can build up your ability. So we're not trying to have you like, okay, just go and tell everyone about it and just like, just like rip off the band-aid and just go and be visible and you'll get used to it. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. When you then go into this like fight or flight, like when your nervous system just freaks the fuck out and your perfectionism handbrake comes on, it doesn't work to do that. So what we do is look at very specifically, where are you not feeling safe and why? And then we create a plan and we implement certain things so that you do feel safe to show up and to share. And then over time, you might change what's required for you to actually feel safe as you feel more confident in yourself, as you feel less shame and all of that, then you will be able to show up in a bigger way, in a more bold way. But we don't try and create this like extreme, okay, just like go and rip the band-aid off and just like go and put yourself out there. Because what will happen is you might be able to will your way to do it for a few days or a few weeks. But in PGSD, we're really interested in creating long-term change, like you actually feeling safe, not just like feeling motivated to do it. And so you show up and you post cringy content for a month and then you're like, okay, and now after that, like I just have to go and retreat because that was so like it felt so embarrassing to do that you then just like fall off, but you can temporarily show up. We want you to be able to show up long term because building a business is a long-term endeavor. It's not done in a month of showing up. You need to have a certain level of stamina and a sufficient volume of action. And so we need to have you actually feeling safe rather than feeling motivated. So there's a process in PGSD specifically, it's called safe visibility, that you go through. And we do a lot of coaching on this as well inside the program. So you can go from feeling unsafe in your visibility to feeling safe. And we do that work in a very direct way, looking at exactly where you feel unsafe and have a process for that instead of being like, just motivate yourself, just stop caring what people think. Like, no, we actually need to do that specific work to see where are you not feeling safe to be visible and why, and then creating a solution for that depending what that is. So there's a process for that. And that process came from me figuring out, okay, for me, how did I go from feeling so unsafe to be visible to actually allowing myself to be visible and then to be more visible and to be more visible? And then I distilled down the exact process that I went through into something that I could teach PGSDers. And now we released that. I think it was, I've been teaching and coaching that forever, but in a formal way last year. And PGSDers have just found that so insanely helpful to be able to actually start being visible and showing up and sharing, even when they've been doing all sorts of different things to try and get themselves motivated to show up and post consistently and put themselves out there. It was only once they did the direct, safe visibility work that we do inside Perfectionists Getting Shit Done that they were actually able to feel safe to be visible. Because what we do as well in PGSD is we meet you where you are with your perfectionist brain. We're not like, just stop caring what people think. No, if you're a perfectionist, you will fundamentally care what people think. So if that's the case, how can we have you still care about what people think and show up? What would have to happen for you to still be able to show up? Instead of let's stop caring what people think, what about let's figure out how to have you show up even when you care what people think? And then from showing up more and more, you will develop more and more, and I'll talk about this in a second, you will develop more and more of your own belief in yourself. And then what people think about you will matter less when what you think about yourself is higher, if you will. Like if you think highly of yourself, it will matter less what other people think of you. But when you don't think highly of yourself, and perfectionists, we don't think highly of ourselves, all we see is the imperfections. If you don't think highly of yourself, of course you care what other people think because you're looking for reassurance and you're not wanting them to add on any extra shame. The people who say, stop caring what people think, just why do you care, are the people who already think highly of themselves. And so it doesn't matter what someone else thinks when you think highly of yourself. But if you don't think highly of yourself, of course it matters. Because we want someone to think highly of us. And so if we don't, then someone else better be doing it for us. So safe visibility is the personal development work that as a perfectionist entrepreneur, you need to do to feel safe to be visible. And then there's some other skills and emotional capabilities that we teach you inside PGSD as well that support this. So first of all, this is the personal development work, how to handle low engagement, refund requests, bad reviews, and doing that without a shame spiral or an extended shame spiral and without just dimming your light and just like reducing yourself down and starting to hold yourself back, but how to actually handle that and also not just be constantly in anticipation of a bad review and a refund request in such a way that you don't even show up at all. You don't even sell, you do so in a very sporadic way. So that's another thing. The next one is enrolling people in your life, in your vision, even if you're not 100% confident in the vision that you have as your business, and holding space for their questions and discomfort. This is a really important thing that we teach you how to do inside Perfectionists Getting Shit Done. You need to be able, if you are not going down the beaten path, if you are going to do something atypical that is irresponsible, if you will, I'm saying that in air quotes because it's not irresponsible, but our perfectionist brains, if you're thinking like, well, the responsible thing to do is go to school and then get a good job where an income is guaranteed, then your brain will tell you it's irresponsible to be in business. And so you have people in your life, whether it's partner, friends, family, like there are other people in your life who also think the responsible thing to do is to just get a well-paying job and then work there till retirement. And so you need to be able to enroll other people in your vision and to also enroll yourself in your vision, to stay connected to why you're doing what you're doing and that you want to do what you're doing, even though it's hard and even though it's going to be uncomfortable and even though you're risking embarrassment and failure and all those other things, it's on your heart to do it. And this is the other thing too. For me, like I just knew, even though I was so scared to really be all in on my business, I knew I would always have that desire because in the times when I was like, hey, I'm not really going to work on it or think about it, it was all I wanted to think about. Like it was just, I knew that at some point I was going to have to try it. Like that desire to try having a business of my own wasn't going to be going anywhere. So if that is the case for you, then you need to be able to keep yourself connected to your mission and your vision that you have. Like it doesn't have to be this like help a million people do XYZ. Like just it could be your mission is like mine was to have a full-time income from my business. Like that was my mission, was I want to have a business that I enjoy working in that makes a full-time income so I don't need to work in another job. That was my mission. That was my vision. And there was no proof that I could do that. And so I had to sustain belief. I had to believe enough for me and for the other people in my life as well. I had to be able to when people ask questions about it, to not have that then throw me into a spin or a shame spiral about things, or have me be like, oh my God, they're totally right. 'Cause I can remember it was 2016 and I was launching my first thing for sale, which was an online course. And I was at a party with some friends that I had that I worked with. And like I'd known them for years, very supportive people. And I was like, oh, okay, I have my blog. I think I'd told them about it. At that point, I'd like started to tell people about it. And I was like, oh, and I'm launching an online course. He was like, oh, what's it about? And then I kind of explained it. And I was like, I feel like it's kind of hard to explain and I'm still figuring out what to say, like how to share it. And he's like, oh, so do you think you should really be selling it then? And like, do you think you should really be doing it? Like, there's just stuff like that where someone who is a really supportive, friendly person in that case will say something that if you're not doing the personal development work can otherwise make you think, like, holy shit, they're right. I shouldn't, like, I'm an imposter, or like this is fraudulent or whatever. Instead, I was able to be like, because I've been doing this personal development work, I've been able to be like, at least in my head, I can't remember what I said in person to him, but at least in my head, being able to be like, well, yeah, of course I'm figuring out how to say it and that's okay. And like it's normal for that to be something I'm figuring out. And that doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. And I kept doing it and I launched it and I made my first money in my business, my first $3,000, which was such an accomplishment. Oh my God, so exciting to do that. And then I continued on, but it's so easy to have someone just say a random comment, especially when you're like, I'm going to show up and tell people about it. And then someone will say something that you're like, oh my God, oh my God. And to just be able to carry on and continue on even when other people don't believe. It's not about trying to get everyone to believe in you, but you need to believe in yourself enough to be able to keep going even when others don't believe, or they have questions, or they're like, okay, but when are you gonna, like, act, like, just give up on this business because it obviously isn't working for you. Like, people will say stuff like that as you go on your business, including people who love you and who want nothing but the best for you. But if someone, especially if someone hasn't gone through the ups and downs and like facing the uncertainty and all the things with building a business, it's different to having a job of like, okay, you get the job, they say, "Hey, this is how much you get paid," then you start getting paid. Like, it's a different game. And if people in your life don't get it, you need to be in PTSD to be able to, like, you need to be around people who get what it's like and can support you. And like, you can lean on my belief while you are building up your own, instead of trying to lean on your partner's belief or your friends and family's belief or like anything like that. Like, you can lean on my belief and other PGSD's belief in you while you're building up your own, but you want to be in places, in spaces like PGSD where you are able to nurture that belief that you have in yourself and what you're trying to figure out. And it's not just like this thing you're alone in trying to figure out. And then you have to try and prove to friends and family that you can make it work. Like, no, like you need a place to come and be able to share, like, these are the doubts I have. These are the struggles I'm having. This is what I'm figuring out right now. Or this is what I'm having a hard time with. Like, you need that. And to also be able to hold space for other people not having the same level of belief that you have or that you want to have. If you have a low level of belief, you probably want everyone else to believe in it so you can believe in it. Like, they should be more supportive. We typically say that when we're in a low level of belief. You want to be in PTSD so you can do the personal development work to get in the high level of belief. And also we support you with that by you being able to lean on my belief and the other PTSD's belief in you while you are building up and nurturing your own belief. Another skill to develop is to not laugh at and diminish yourself, or like not just think of your business in this kind of hobby mentality, especially if you're not making a full-time income yet. Most of our PGSEs aren't yet making a full-time income. So it's easy to be like, oh, well, this is just a little thing. And it's like, I just squeeze this around everything else, even though you're thinking about it all the time. You're like, this is just kind of like a little hobby that I have. And we sometimes do that as well because it feels more emotionally safe to say it's a hobby, because then if it fails, well, it was just a hobby, instead of like I was talking about when you're really going for it. That feels more vulnerable of like, well, I'm actually sure it's not making as much money as I want it to make right now, but I do see this producing a full-time income for me. That is a more like, it feels like a more vulnerable thing to say. And to even just say to ourselves, like, this could actually produce a full-time income for me in the foreseeable future. So you need to learn how to not laugh at yourself, how to not diminish yourself and your goals and what you're doing, especially while you're in the process of figuring out how to do it, because you can't be in the belief of, well, once I'm good, then I'll believe in my business, because you're not going to get good if you're in that belief. If you believe once I'll get good, then I'll believe, once I'm successful, then I'll go all in, you will never be successful because you didn't go all in. You have to go all in before you're successful. You have to believe before there's proof that it works. It doesn't go the other way around. What else have I got here? Oh yeah, being willing to confidently promote and sell when there's no guarantee that it will work or that it will sell or that there's reassurance from your audience that they want it. This is really important, to be able to show up and share about what you're doing from a really connected, compelling place when there's no proof. When you haven't got, oh my God, everyone's DMing me and saying, I can't wait to sign up. I can't wait to buy. Like, can you show up and put yourself out there when there's crickets, when it feels like you're talking to a brick wall? Like, you need to develop that ability. And also, and there's others, but the other one I wrote down here is, the other skill to develop is being able to get into a sufficiency cycle where you are making decisions sufficiently. You're not trying to get it right and like spending all this time procrastinating and just like thinking and thinking and thinking and like umming and ahhing and looking at what everyone else is doing. But you make a decision sufficiently. We teach you how to do that in PGSD. You take sufficient action. Okay, we teach you how to do this in PGSD, but you take sufficient action. You're showing up, you're doing things, you're completing them sufficiently. And then you're able from that to create sufficient results and be able, when you do that over an extended period of time, you're able to create a full-time income from your business. So we support you with all of that in PGSD, but that is a skill you need to learn because our perfectionist brain wants to make the perfect decision and then to execute on everything in an optimal way to get the perfect result. And that just creates so much pressure, which then reduces creativity, resourcefulness, resilience, which means basically you're constantly stopping and starting, or you're just not doing things at all and you're just constantly thinking about your business but not building your business. And you're similar to what I said before about how with my blog, like I was working so hard in my brain on my business, but you wouldn't know it. Looking at my blog, you would not know how hard I was working in my brain. And the final thing I have here is as well, noticing when your fear of being seen is stopping you from taking sufficient action and making sufficient decisions and getting back into safe visibility, getting back into the place where you can show up and put yourself out there and be seen imperfectly, but not from this place of, well, I'm intentionally being imperfect, but from this place of I'm really trying my best. And sometimes my best actually might not be good enough. So power planning, and I'm going to do a whole episode on the tools, but power planning for me and for my clients in PGSE, that's how we notice that that is coming up. Because for me, like, for example, when that comes up for me, and it still will from time to time, like it's just evolved into this next level of it, or this like much higher level. I still from time to time have this fear of being seen come up. Obviously, I'm able to operate with a lot of that fear of being seen, and I don't have as much fear of being seen as well. But for me, like I notice that coming up through my power planning because I see the actions I'm taking shift, or that I'm not following through with my plans, or I had a plan to show up and then suddenly I'm doing something else, or suddenly I had a great idea to do something else. But my power planning is what allows me to really clearly see when that fear is going on and when I need to get back into safe visibility. And to be able to, another thing is to shift my thinking from the thinking that has me feel unsafe to the thinking that has me feel safe to be visible. And I'm constantly doing that personal development specifically, even with the podcast series like this that my perfectionist brain wants to go into. Well, we should like spend all this time mapping it out and da da da. And I have to actually actively do the personal development work to create safety for myself to just show up and record this. So join us in PGSD when we open on the 30th. We support you so much and teach you exactly how to feel safe to be seen as yourself and to feel safe in the risky endeavor that is entrepreneurship, where your perfectionist brain wants guarantees. It wants certainty that if you put in a good effort and if you do good work, you'll get the results you want. But that isn't business. You have to have capacity for uncertainty to keep working, even when things feel uncertain, and even when there is no guarantee that your effort will pay off. But it is so worthwhile to have a business, if for nothing else, than the personal development of it, then the way that it will grow you and evolve you. And of course, doing that personal development makes it so much more likely that you'll be able to have a successful business. If you don't do the personal development and just stay how you are, you will keep getting the same results that you have been getting. And my guess is, if you're listening to this, you don't want those results. You want to be able to have a full-time income from your business. You want to be able to enjoy your business. You want to be able to actually take time off and rest. You want to be able to feel proud of your business. You want to be able to show up. You want to be able to make a plan and follow through with it. You want to be confident in who you are and what you're doing. That is what we teach you and support you with in PGSD. So samlabrown.com/PGSD is where you can go to join the waitlist if you're not on it already, and sign up when doors open at 6 a.m. Eastern time on the 30th of January. I just wish I had PGSD to support me with these fears that I had, that really was like the first hurdle for me as a perfectionist entrepreneur, like to actually allow myself to be seen, because it took so many years of trial and error to figure it out, as someone who naturally is very into personal development and like just I put so much effort into trying to figure this out for myself, and I'm so glad that I was able to. And now I can teach it to you. So like this, it is just so much faster to be in PGSE and have the tools and the support and the community than to just try and figure it out on your own in the hope that you'll actually be able to figure that out. Like, this is very specific work that we teach you in PGSD that you can't learn anywhere else. And I really want to invite you into it so you can feel safe to show up and be seen and build your business, and to be going for it, to be up to something, to actually be like going after your dreams instead of just like thinking about it or planning on it or wishing you had more time so you could do it. Like, to actually be figuring out like how to go for it. That is what we teach you in PGSD, how to go for it, how to do that in a way that doesn't burn you out, how to do that in a way that's in alignment with your values, how to do that in a way that doesn't have you neglecting the other things that are important in your life, how to do it when you're we teach you how to do it while being relaxed and rested and like all those other things too. So I just want you to be inside. If you relate to any of this, if you can see yourself in any of this, PGSE is going to be the best investment you have ever made in your business. Just being able to do this work is such an unlock. And this isn't even to mention the other things I'm going to talk about in the series, but just this piece alone is worth the investment for PGSD and then some. Like, oh my God. So join the waitlist if you haven't already. Get ready to join us inside when doors open on the 30th of January. And I will talk to you in part 3 of the personal development series. If you enjoyed this episode and you want me to be your coach and you want to be doing this work on a deep level with like-minded perfectionist entrepreneurs, then I want to invite you to join us inside Perfectionists Getting Shit Done, aka PGSD. It's my coaching program for perfectionist entrepreneurs, and we do this personal development work that I have been talking about in this series. You get the tools, the structure, the support that gets your perfectionist brain working for you instead of against you. It is a lifetime access program. It is absolutely incredible, so supportive, just everything you could want as a perfectionist entrepreneur. So I want to invite you to join us inside. The doors are opening on the 30th of January at 6 a.m. Eastern time and close at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time on Friday, the 6th of February. So to find out more today and join us inside the program, go to samlaurabrown.com/PGSD.